Hello. To our different campuses, Racine, Kenosha, those of you who watch online, hello to all of you, and to those in the room with me right now. The energy is palatable. Wow, I love it. Guys, today is an exciting day for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the start of group season at Great Lakes Church. Woo! So here's the deal. If you want for church to be more than just an event, you want for church to be more than just a service or something you mark off your weekly calendar, I'm telling you that groups is the answer. And so this has been a priority of ours ever since we launched back in 2009 because it is through groups that we meet people, it's through groups that we develop friendships, and it is through groups that we build community. And the key word is build because we cannot microwave community, right? We build community. And so if you want to find out what's happening around here in regards to groups, you can look at the catalog that you were handed when you came in, or you can go to greatlakechurch.com/groups and you can sign up for a group. And I'll let you know we have three basic types of groups. We have growing groups, and those are the type of groups where there's a Bible study, there is a particular topic that's being focused on where you can grow. A lot of our growing groups actually discuss the weekly talks. So you hear us talk about something on a Wednesday evening or a Sunday morning, and the growing groups discuss those. One of the growing groups that I'm super excited about this season is we have a Financial Peace University, right? Happening at our Kenosha campus at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday nights in conjunction with our Weekends on Wednesday service. And so if you're in a season of life where you're like, man, we really do have to focus on our finances, 9-week course, it's $99, but I'm telling you, that includes a year-long membership, it includes materials, it is going to be worth every penny. And we've seen collectively members of our church who go through this get out of well over $500,000 of debt together. Collectively. And so it is worth going through this class. Then we have activity groups, which are just, hey, we hang out, we have fun, woo-woo, and we don't have to do homework or get too serious. And then the third type of group we have are serving groups. At Great Lakes Church, I am always blown away by the involvement in our serving groups. And so if you say, man, I want to get involved in our community, I want to get involved in some of the mission work we do, it is going to be through our serving groups, so we're excited about them. All right, so that's happening today. Second thing happening today is we are launching a brand new 3-week series called Family Circus. And the big idea of this series is this: a dysfunctional family is a family with more than one person in it. Right? If your family, if your marriage, if your parenting relationship is more than just you, it is dysfunctional. And so here's what I want to say. Regardless of where you're at on the relationship scale, right? When you fill out your taxes, regardless of what you would mark, I'm single, I'm married, I'm divorced, I'm remarried, I'm widowed, whatever that may be, I just want you to know that every single one of us come from and are part of dysfunctional families. And this is super important to embrace because growing up, there was a term that I would hear every so often, and the term was this: broken families. And it referred to families where there was divorce, maybe a single parent raising a child, or where there was obviously a lot of chaos happening in the home. Broken families. And I have come to understand over the years, it took me a while to get there, that's actually a pretty offensive term because every family is broken. Every family is dysfunctional. And so I want you to know, regardless of where you're at on the relationship scale, you are welcome here. This is a judgment-free zone. If I see your 3-year-old throwing a temper tantrum in one of our lobbies, I promise you I'm not going to judge. Right? If I run into you at Target and your kid is like throwing toys off the shelf, I'm going to look at you and smile and say, have a good day. No judgment. All right? Because I just know my own family. This week, this is not an exaggeration. This is not a made-up story. This week, we had another couple over to our house from the church, and my son, 13 years old, in the middle of dinner, decides to tell one of the most inappropriate jokes that he could tell. And I'm like, I do know how he thinks it's funny because he told me it a couple days earlier and I laughed. I said, that's probably not something you should repeat, but he did repeat it, right? So I know my own family. I know how one of my daughters, who will remain nameless, 2 months ago, I saw her post something on social media and I just told her, hey, let you know, if you ever post something like that again on social media, I'm not helping you out financially for a couple of months, all right? And so you can go to college by yourself and worry about that on your own, but I am not helping. So all of us have dysfunctional, broken, crazy families. It's just what kind of level crazy are we? Right? That's what we're debating. Some of you are like stalkerish crazy. Others of you are like, key someone's car crazy. And then there are a few of you who are like, where do I hide a dead body crazy? But we are all our own level of crazy. We all have issues. So when it comes to marriage or parenting, what happens, the reason we call this family circus is we all feel like we're juggling an endless list of responsibilities and expectations on our life. And at times, it feels like we're trying to walk this tightrope and find the right balance between all the things we're responsible for. Now, I always get nervous doing an illustration. I didn't try and like practice beforehand, but this is going to be one of those illustrations. I was thinking of this earlier today, how we wear so many different responsibilities in life, right? We wear, for some, we wear parent, right? Or maybe if you have a dog, you feel like you're a parent to the dog, that's great. It's not the same thing, I promise you. And then we wear marriage responsibilities for some, or just relationship responsibilities. We wear responsibilities with work for a lot of us. We wear responsibilities when it comes to friendships, right? We got friends, right? We wear maybe entertainment or whatever. And so what we do is we go through life just saying, okay, we wear all these different things, but let's try to find the right balance. And we do this because we've been taught all our life that balance is important. Right, as a kid, we're taught you've got to eat right and have a balanced diet. We know early on in our teenage years or our young adult years, as we have checkbooks, which aren't common anymore, but you got to balance a checkbook. We know as we invest for retirement, we got to have a balanced portfolio. You can't put everything into one stock. Right, when it comes to our mental health, we all want to have balanced chemicals in our brain. And so naturally, our hope and our goal is, man, that through life, I'm just trying to find balance, the work-life balance, the balance with everything in life. And it's just like, if I could just perfectly, just don't breathe, anybody, if we can just get, and here's what I want to tell you. It's just idealistic. We're never, ever, ever going to be able to find a perfect balance. It really is not the best metaphor for family. I think a much better metaphor is that we're building something, right? Like Jenga. And we're trying, many of us, to build healthy marriages that do more than just kind of function, right? But where there's just, it feels loving and life-giving. We're trying as parents to build good and godly kids that are productive in society, right? We're trying to build families where we actually kind of all like and enjoy hanging out with one another. We're trying to build things at our work and have productivity and leave our mark on society, right? We're trying to do all those things. So here's the deal. If you've ever played Jenga, you know that there's really kind of one goal, right? What's the goal? Yeah, to not knock it over. And I'm going to do my best to not knock this over. And at some point in the talk today, this may just fall over naturally, and that's just how it goes, and we'll pick it up later, right? But this, to me, is a better metaphor for life. Because we're building something. Now, if you've ever played Jenga, you know what you try to do is you take out a piece, you take out one of the bricks, and you put it on the top, and you really see how high you can go. And so, if you're careful, yeah, it's going to already fall over. We're in trouble. We're in trouble. But what happens is you don't want to mess the foundation up. Because if you take too many away from the foundation, the thing is going to crumble. And the same's true with life. Like, if we've got too many things going on in life, and I'm not going to keep taking out pieces right now, but you got too many things going on with life, with your kids, and with the demands of work, and with the demands of marriage, what happens is we keep trying to build more and more and more into our life, and then the foundation weakens. But life is fragile. Come on, we know this. Marriage is fragile. Family is fragile. And so really one of the most important things we can do is pay attention to the foundation. Now, we live in a very unique time period of history, and so what we're going to talk about today is a topic that's pretty debatable. It's a topic of marriage. How do you build a foundation of marriage? And the reason I say it's debatable is in 2020, everybody has an idea of what marriage should be or shouldn't be. Right? There are some people who would argue that marriage is really the answer to all of life's problems. Right? They think that marriage is the quick fix to loneliness, the quick fix to financial struggles, the quick fix to the pressure maybe your parents are putting on you. But here's what I want you to know. Marriage doesn't fix problems. It just doesn't. Despite what some people think, marriage isn't nonstop laughter and binge watching Netflix and having sex 3 times a day. Okay? This is why the Apostle Paul actually warns people when it comes to marriage. He says, those who get married will have trouble. I double dog you, to dare you, if you are going to a wedding this spring or this summer, to have this engraved on one of the gifts that you give the wedding couple. Those who get married will have troubles. Woo! See, marriage doesn't fix problems. Now, the opposite side of the coin, there are people who might argue that we should dismiss the idea of marriage altogether because it really feels archaic. And if we really went back, we could argue it's a man-made establishment that looks different in every culture. And so it really doesn't matter all that much. There are some people who they would downplay, not just marriage, they just downplay relationships in general because, relationships hold us back in our careers. In relationships, they take away a lot from our independence. And we don't have near as much free time when we're in a relationship. And that may be true, but it's important for us to remind ourselves that marriage still has, despite the arguments against it, it has incredible value. This is why the author of one of the letters in our Bible writes this. They say, give honor to marriage. Give honor to marriage. There is nothing in this life that has the potential to grow you as a person like marriage does. The Apostle Paul says, hey, if you want to have time to serve the Lord, you need to stay single. Because you have some free time, use it to serve the Lord. I would argue you want to be more like Jesus, get married. Because marriage has a way of shaping us and forming us and helping us see things inside of us that we didn't even know existed. There is nothing that has the potential to grow us or mature us like marriage. So marriage doesn't solve all our problems. Certainly, marriage doesn't create all our problems. But what marriage does do is it reveals our problems. It reveals our problems. There's an illustration I go back to almost every marriage talk we give, and it's Mr. and Mrs. Cup. Okay? This is the illustration. Pretty simple. Everything's going well. We're hand-holding. We're cuddling. We love each other. And we've been dating now for like 15 days, and man, we think we're going to get married. And then we get into a heated argument. And we get in this argument, and something comes out of us. And we're like, what was that? I said something I don't normally say. I felt something I don't normally feel. And you keep going another couple weeks, and things come out of it. It's like, what is going on? I'm telling you, I've never talked like this before to anyone. I don't know what's happening. I've never felt, nobody's ever talked to me like that before. And so the tendency is to point to the other person and says, you made me do this. Look at you. This never happened to me before. Here's what happened. We think the reason something come out of us is because they made it come out of us. And they made it happen. They created. No, what comes out of us is what's in us in the first place. We just don't know it's there. Because it's hard to know something's there when mama coddles us for 26 years of our life and tells us how sweet we are and we never do anything wrong. It's hard for us to see the anger inside of us when we've never had anything that really makes us all that angry. So here's the deal. If I'm cranky, my marriage is going to reveal it. If I'm a perfectionist, my marriage is going to reveal it. If I'm fearful and insecure, my marriage is going to reveal it. If I'm bitter and angry, if I'm manipulative, if I'm controlling, my marriage is going to reveal it. Yeah, it's going to come out. I'd like to ask one of you to volunteer to clean this up afterwards. So, marriage doesn't solve or create our problems, at least all of our problems, right? It reveals them. So, let me put it this way. Right now, I really am in pretty great health, okay? And so I feel great. I've got energy. In fact, I like to mock people at Great Lakes Church who I know work out, and then they'll come in one day and they're like, I pulled a hamstring. I was running. And I'm like, I wasn't running. Look at me. Woo. I'm feeling good. Right? So I just kind of mock them. But here's what I can tell you. If I decided to get up and run a marathon, it would not be long into that marathon, probably less than 100 yards, and I'd start to realize, I'm not as healthy as I thought I was. The marathon would reveal in me something that is a reality, but I just don't see it. And that's what often happens in marriage. It's constantly revealing stuff in us that we didn't even know was there. And that's actually a pretty good thing because we grow when we see and find things inside of us that we didn't even know existed. King Solomon of Israel writes this, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Now, when King Solomon writes these words, he's not discrediting those of you who are single in any way. All right, remember this, man. The Apostle Paul was single. The prophet Jeremiah was single. John the Baptist was single. All right, Jesus was single. Every couple of months, Taylor Swift is single. There's nothing wrong with being single. But when Solomon writes that two people are better than one, he's saying, generally speaking, in life, it is better to do life with it's better to do things with another person than it is to do things alone. Two perspectives are often better than one perspective. You can find strength and support and encouragement in another person. So hear me say it again. There is serious value in marriage. And so that's what we're talking about, the foundation of our marriage. How do we protect and care for the foundation of our marriage? And before I get into the actual points that I want to make, let me just tell you how my marriage started. All right? Rindy and I were both attending North Central University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. All right? I was there studying to be a pastor, and she was in the stage of trying to figure out what she wanted to be. I was 19 yeyears old when I was at college. She was, 5 or 6 years older than me, but whatever. Cougar, right? So here's the deal. We were both at college, but we didn't really get to know each other at college. We kind of had some conversations here and there, no big deal. But then we ended up working at the same restaurant, the Old Spaghetti Factory in downtown Minneapolis. She was a hostess, and I was a busboy. All right? And I really liked her. She didn't like me, though, the way I liked her, right? And I know that because one day I actually said to her, Rindy, I kind of like you. And she said, well, I don't like you, and I like someone back in my hometown of Rockford. That's how I know she didn't like me, okay? But let me tell you where things took a turn. I'm not making this story up, nor am I exaggerating. This is where the story took a turn. At the Old Spaghetti Factory, we had several students from North Central who worked there. I was the only one of those individuals who actually owned a car. And so I would give people rides back to the college after our work shift, because a lot of us ended at the same time. And so I came up with this idea that I decided to try. And I went around to the different people I gave a ride to, and I said, hey, I really like Rindy. I said, so here's what I'm going to do. Tonight, when we go home, I'm going to ask her if she wants to hang out with us afterwards, like go to Denny's or something. If she says yes, and you want me to continue giving you rides, you got to find a way to say no. But I'm going to ask her first. And so sure enough, we get in the car, and I say, hey, Rindy, I said, we're probably going to go out to Denny's or something. You want to come hang out with us? She goes, yeah, that'd be awesome. And I said, Tom, you want to come hang out? Oh, Dave, I wish I could. I got laundry. Oh, that's a bummer. How about you, Mark? Oh, no, I got homework. Right, Jen, you going to come hang out with us? Yeah, actually, you serious? You got great. You're free. No, I'm just kidding, Dave. I actually have something to do. Okay. So, true story. My first 3 or 4 dates with Rindy were total manipulation. It was getting her to say yes first, and then everybody else say no. So I'd just be like, oh, I guess it's just us today. So we'd go out. And she couldn't resist me for too long. Eventually, we started dating. And then after several months of dating, we started imagining what our life would be like together. We started talking about marriage, and we started discussing the future. And then on October 27th, 1995, we got engaged. Now, I'm not going to share all the different details of our engagement with you, but I'm going to tell you kind of how this ended. I put her on a scavenger hunt, right? I put her on this scavenger hunt that led her to a beach that had her digging up a treasure chest. So she digs up this treasure chest, opens it up, and there's a ring box in there. So I take it out. Now, I had put the ring in my pocket and buried it, but I took the ring out, got on a knee, and asked, would you marry me? And she said, yes. Okay, now, this is where things go. This is where, like, dear God, what was I thinking? Love makes us do stupid things. So I say, at the end of this evening, of us, this engagement, I say, Rindy, before you go home, do you want to come over to my place and watch a movie? And that wasn't a metaphor. We were going to watch a movie. And so she says, yes. She goes, yeah, let's do that. And I said, because I picked up a romantic movie. And so I put in this movie, but it wasn't the movie that I told her it was going to be. It was a video of me professing my undying love to her. Okay, now here's the deal. My pride will not allow me to ever show you the full video, but I am going to show you 30 seconds of it. Check this.
I hope that you can honestly sense the love that I have for you. And I'm going to do everything that I can possibly do by reading books, by listening to tapes, by going to seminars to always keep that love fresh and new. Because I don't want you to ever think that maybe you're not everything to me, because you are everything to me, Rindy. I try to build you up in front of people. I try to encourage you. I try to support you, although right now you're supporting me.
Dude, wow. That video is just so bad. It is so bad, and it's true. She was my sugar mama in that time period. We go out to eat. I'm like, can you help me out, man? Because I knew her dad was helping her pay for college. I was like, let's all take advantage of this together. But, oh, dude, really, I'll go to seminars for you. I'll read books for you. I mean, and looking back, most of the dreams that Rindy and I had when we got engaged, most of the desires and hopes that we had were rooted in our upbringing. In other words, so my mom pretty much cooked homemade meals every night for growing up. And so it just was an assumption of mine that Rindy's going to do that. Right? This is how life works. Growing up, I'm not making this up. My mom created most of the structures and rules in our house. So again, I just assumed that's what Rindy's going to do. My dad worked full time, and my mom kind of had this side hustle. We didn't call it that at the time. She had an in-home daycare. And yet, she still was able to do about 99% of the cleaning inside the house. So I just assumed that's what Rindy's going to do. It's rooted in our upbringing. Now, Rindy, on the other hand, her dad also worked outside the home, but her mom did not have an in-home daycare. Her mom didn't have a side hustle. She didn't work outside the house. So Rindy assumed when we got married that she would be a stay-at-home mom, and that would be her life. Rindy's dad provided financially, so Dave's going to do all that. Her dad did all the yard work. Her dad helped with the cooking. Her dad is one of the kindest, most gentle, soft-spoken individuals you will ever meet. So she just assumed. Surprise! Right? But here's the deal. That's okay, because every one of us, when we get into a relationship, we come in with hopes and dreams and wishes. That's natural. That's just part of life. But for most of us, that's the foundation we build our relationship on. It's these hopes and dreams and wishes. And then what happens over time is things start to chip away at the relationship. We have kids, and now our kids need our time, right? There's demands at work. And now we've got to give in to those demands. And things start chipping away at the relationship. So I want to, hopefully pretty quickly here, walk through 4 things that have the tendency to chip away at the foundation of our relationship. Number 1 is this: when desires turn into expectations. Every person in the history of the world, man, if they got married, they came in with dreams and hopes and desires and wishes. So when Rindy and I got married back in 1996, like many of you, we exchanged vows. And they were traditional vows. I, David, take you, Rindy, to be my wedded wife, right? To have and to hold from this day forward. For better or for? Yeah, for richer or for? In sickness and in? Until death do us part, right? Or one of us kills the other person. And here's the deal. If you think about it, those are pretty big promises. And there's absolutely no way that Rindy and I could have grasped the weight of the words we were exchanging. Of course, we now are in 2020, and in the past decade, it's become more and more common for people to write their own vows. And so I've officiated a lot of weddings where people write their vows, and I actually enjoy that because you get to hear these promises, but some are pretty intense. I've written down some I've heard over the years, right? I promise to check in with you every day and listen intently to every word. Right? I promise to love you for who you are and not who I want you to be. I promise to not rely on you for my happiness. And these are great promises, but we make them because we're honestly naive. And even though we say we don't believe in fairy tales, there's something in us that wants to believe fairy tales are true. And so we have all these hopes and dreams and wishes and desires, but when those hopes and dreams and wishes and desires become expectations, they remove the ability for someone to show love or receive love. It is impossible to give or receive love in the midst of expectations. Here's what I mean. If my wife is cooking a meal, and I expect that that's what she's going to do because that's what my mama did, then I'm not going to receive it as a loving gesture. I'm just going to receive it as, come on, you're my wife. That's what you do. If she does laundry, if she cleans the house, I know I sound old school here, and I got to be careful, right? Oh yeah, Dave, you do all. Yeah. But if she does these things, and she's doing them because she genuinely shows me love, but I just say, well, this is not what my wife did. Then, or this is what my mama did, so this is what I expect you to do. Man, then come on, it doesn't allow her to show love. On the flip side, if she just like, well, yeah, my dad took care of the bills, and my dad kept cars running, my dad fixed things, and my dad planned trips to the family, man, I could give hours and hours and hours to that, but who cares? Because she doesn't see it as a loving gesture. She just sees it as that's what the guy does. I've lived in my house that I live in now since 2011. I have paid every month, faithfully, never missed a month, my We Energies bill. Paid on time, every time. Do you know how many thank you notes they've sent me since 2011? It's because they expect that I'm going to pay the bill. And so there's not a lot of love being shown. And this is what we do in a relationship. When desires turn into expectations, it chips away at the foundation of the relationship. Maybe you had an expectation of how your spouse was going to look, because when you got married, you looked a certain way, you just thought for a whole life. And then they've changed in their looks. And this is what I like to remind people. Every marriage I try to find a way to just kind of sing it in. Whatever your wife looks like, whatever your husband looks like, you need to determine that is my standard of beauty. Because we change. All of us change over time, right? If your spouse is tall, guess what? You're into tall. If they're short, you're into short. If they're funny, you're into funny. If they're serious, you're into serious. If they're thin, you're into thin. If they put on weight over the years, you're into, formerly thin. But we have to decide at every stage that I'm going to make my spouse my standard of beauty. Guard your heart from allowing expectations to chip away at the foundation. Because if it's all expectations, chipping away at the foundation, it's easy for it to crumble. Another thing that chips away at the foundation of our marriage is when busyness turns into apathy. We're all busy. And my busyness has a way of causing me to be apathetic in my relationship. Now, if we're honest, after a while, we all kind of lose a little bit of motivation in a relationship. We just become way too comfortable with each other. Right? It's like when you get a new car, or maybe a car that's new to you. You get it and you have all these rules, like it's going to stay clean, and nobody's allowed to bring food in here. Nobody's definitely allowed to eat in my car. This is just, my car. And then you get into the same car like 2 years later, and it looks like they're running a restaurant out of it. It's like, what? We get lazy, right? I remember when we were dating, I would show up to Randy's house, and I'd ring the doorbell, and it'd be like 0.2 seconds, and the door would be open. It's like, I swear, she was on the other side, just looking at the clock, like, tick, 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 Dave's going to be here any minute, right? But now I could come home, and I'm like, hey, I'm home. And she'd be like, I've been here too. Do you want a marching band or something? Like, we just get used to each other. At some point, the busyness of life causes our relationships to become routine and boring, and we get really apathetic on the relationship because we feel like we really do know the other person. And I get that, and that would be true. We'd fully know the other person if life was static, but life's always changing. Nothing is static, right? Nothing remains the same. Everything is in a state of change. Our bodies change, our beliefs change, our environments change, our abilities change, our level of intelligence changes. Everything in this life, everything in this world is in a state of fluctuation. So Randy and I, we started dating 1995. We've been married now for 23 years, and in that time, we've lived in 6 different states. We've lived in 13 different houses. I've gained 25 pounds, right? Rindy has gained weight as well, although you would never know it. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. I mean, it's just, you would just never know it. We've had 2 biological kids. We've adopted a kid. She's lost her mom. Her dad got remarried. She found her birth mom. I lost my brother. I became a bodybuilder. When we go through all sorts of changes in life, and some of the changes that we go through, they arrive unexpectedly. They're uninvited. We don't want them. Other changes happen because we make a choice. We choose to move across the country. We choose to take another job. And for the good or bad, those changes affect us. They shape us in some way. And I hate to say this, and I never say this at a wedding, but every few years, we're really married to a different person. You think about that. When you say, I'm going to be with you forever, you're really saying, I'm going to be with the 17 different versions of you that I'm going to see as life changes you. It's constantly changing us. And think about this. Most of the time, when we meet the person that we end up marrying, we meet them, not all the time, but often we meet them in a season of life where we have little responsibility and a lot of time and energy. And then as life evolves, what happens is we have a lot of responsibility and very little time and very little energy. And so when Randy and I started dating, we could talk for hours on end. And I love you. You hang up first. No, you hang up first. No. But that's changed. And so we have to work on prioritizing each other. Right? Come on. There's no area of this life that we can ignore and expect improvement in. We ignore and neglect our bodies, we're not going to see them improve. We can ignore and neglect our yard, and then what's going to happen? Weeds are going to come up, and grass is going to become faded and brown. And come on, there's no area. Right now, we're seeing this all across the country. It's kind of been over the past decade that malls, which used to have a lot of life in them, right? You used to go and visit. They become deserted or abandoned, and now they're just dying and falling apart. And yet, for some reason, we think we can put our relationships on autopilot and they're going to get better. But that is not how life works. So figure out, what are you going to do? Maybe it's reading books together. Maybe it's going to a conference once a year. Maybe it's going to a weekend getaway and just going on with the two of you. Maybe it's going on a marriage retreat, date night. My wife and I have, I wish I'd have brought it with me to show you, but we have in one of our vehicles, it's 88 questions. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I think it's 88 questions for husbands and wives. But they're just these questions you can pull out any time and just ask. How do you want to celebrate our 25th anniversary or our 50th anniversary? Then you flip the card around. There's another question. How would you rate our marriage right now? But it's just helping you stay connected, all right? So what are you doing to build your relationship? Spiritually? Emotionally? Intellectually? Are you growing intellectually together? Physically? Right? What are you doing even in regards to your sex life? Is it just the same thing over and over and over? Or, man, what are you doing to build the relationship? Something else that chips away at the foundation, number 3 here, is when tensions turn into problems. Every relationship has tensions and problems, okay? Parenting relationships, marriage relationships, co-worker relationships. Every relationship in life has tensions and problems. The challenge is trying to understand what a problem is and understand what a tension is. And the reason that it's super important to tell the difference between the two is because problems are things that need to be solved. Tensions are things that just need to be managed. Most of the time we get it backwards. Or we get really frustrated and disillusioned in the relationship because we're trying to solve tensions, and tensions are things that are never going to go away. So one of my favorite marriage books, and I don't necessarily say go read it, but you probably could find a summary online, is 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. It was written by a big geek. His name's Dr. John Gottman. And I call him a geek because he just does all this research and studies on relationships. And what he's discovered is 75% of the conflicts in our relationships are perpetual. They'll always be present in the relationship because they're hardwired into who we are as people. They're part of our personality. They're part of kind of our upbringing. So let me put it this way. 70% of the problems in your marriage are never going away. That's because they're based on who we are as individuals. Let me just give you some examples. One of you is a morning person. The other's a night owl. I want you to come to bed. I want you to get up. Why don't you get up and have coffee with me, right? One of you loves to spend money. The other's a tightwad. One of you loves to cuddle. The other's a porcupine. One of you is an extrovert. The other is an introvert. One of you is a clean freak. The other's a slob. One of you is very prompt. The other is, fashionably late. One of you enjoys romantic comedies. The other enjoys good movies. And so there's always going to be a difference in certain areas of life. And those tensions are never going to go away. And so in those areas, we have to learn how to communicate. King Solomon of Israel writes, "Joyful is the person who finds wisdom, the one who gains understanding." 2 of the most powerful communication tools, wisdom and understanding. When is the last time you tried to truly understand your husband or your wife? When's the last time, instead of drawing negative assumptions and try to just assuming that you know where they're coming from, that you just ask, help me understand? Because when we accuse or we jump to conclusions or we make assumptions, it doesn't solve anything. Well, you should hear the way they talk to me. Is it possible that right now they're in an incredibly stressful season? And you just need to show mercy. I say this because I know my wife's going to watch the talk on Sunday, right? Is it possible that what they're going through right now in their life is affecting who they are and how they're thinking. Effective communication is all about understanding. The fact we're different from each other makes it a challenge, but we can get better at it. Okay? The Apostle Paul writes a letter in the first century. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. How do you do that? How do you manage your tension? I think it starts with just using phrases like, I can see why you think that way. I can see why that matters to you. I understand now where you're coming from. It may not change your belief. It may not change your feelings and your emotions, but it gives you understanding. And as our understanding grows, the tensions go down. Now, not all conflicts are just tensions. We know this. There are some real problems, right? Infidelity is a real problem. Ignoring parental responsibilities, real problem. Always going out after work, never going home to the family, that's a real problem. Not doing anything to help around the house and just expecting the other person to do it, that's a real problem. Physical abuse, real problem. Emotional abuse, real problem. And when it comes to real problems, you simply just can't manage them away. You have to deal with them head on. And most of the time, that's going to happen through professional counseling. Most of the time, that's going to be allowing people to speak truth into your life. That's not something where you're just like, I'm physically abused, so let me just read some books on this. I'm going to get better. Right? It goes deeper than that. But we've got to get to the root of it. King Solomon writes this: hatred stirs up quarrels, but love makes up for all offenses. And so true love is seeking help. True love is being willing to deal with problems at a core level. Most guys I know would say, I'd die for my wife if it came to that. In fact, if I did a survey on how many guys would die for their wife, all the hands would go up, mostly because other people are looking around, but you would put your hand up loud and proud. But I'm telling you, I know this from experience, most guys won't go to marriage counseling for their wife. Most guys won't do what it takes to get to the root level of what's happening. And man, true love does that. So going back to something I said earlier, in the last point, we can't just neglect working on our marriage. It's a constant thing we've got to do. And the reason why we got to constantly be working on it is because we are going to encounter problems regardless. We could be working all the time on it. There's just problems in relationships. There's health problems that pop up. There's financial problems that pop up. There's all types of relationship problems that will just pop up in your life. And where you're at when those relationship problems pop up is a big deal. So let me show you this slide. All right. Let's say 1 is the worst your relationship can possibly be, 10 is the best. And this is just life. You can go through life and, man, things are going fine and whatever. You're going through life. But eventually you're going to hit a mountain. Again, a financial mountain. You're going to hit a relationship. You're going to hit a mountain of some sort. So let's say you've been really bad in your relationship. You're at like a 2, right? You talk bad to each other. You don't figure things out. You don't get along. You're just demeaning to each other. This is how you. Then here's what happens. When you have to go over the mountain, you got a lot of work to do. If you can get past this mountain in your relationship, whatever it is, like a huge health issue, something with your kids that's going on, they're just completely rebellious and it's pulling you guys apart, man, it's going to take a lot of work to go over that. But let's say your relationship's a 7 and you're trying your best to always talk, you're trying to connect, you're going on dates or whatever it is for you, right? You weekend getaway, you're reading books, you're listening to podcasts, but you're constantly trying to work on your relationship. Then you got to go over the mountain and you got the ability to do it. It doesn't take that much energy. It doesn't take that much effort. And so remember, there is a difference between tensions and problems. There are going to be problems, and how you treat and talk to each other when there's not problems is going to be the biggest indicator of how you deal with the problem once it hits. All right, we're pretty much out of time. Let me just give you this last one. Here we go, number 4. What chips away at the foundation is when we mistake love for chemistry. So easy to do. We all want to feel love, right? Every romantic comedy we've ever watched is about attraction and emotion and how someone feels leading up to falling in love. And so it's easy to think, well, every relationship's going to be like Disney. Right? Come on. We've been indoctrinated in this. I've said this before. If I was on The Bachelor, okay, and there's helicopter rides and there's sandy beaches and candlelight dinners, and I got, to go on a date and there's a private performance with you two, I promise you I could fall in love with my sister. That's the power of emotion. Sorry, Mom. All of us love how we feel when we're attracted to someone. That's why we say things like, I'm so in love, or I've never felt this way about anybody before. We can just talk for hours and hours and hours on end. Oh, I can't keep my mind off of him. He can't keep his body off of me. We are so drawn to each other. When we talk about relationships, we almost always talk about it in terms of feeling and emotion, which is understandable. But if we really think about it, we know that love's deep down, we know that love's a choice. Because you look at couples that have been married 30 years, 40 years, and if you were to say, what is it that fuels that what kind of love is that? You're going to say things like patience, and you're going to say things like kindness and forgiveness. That's what makes it go the distance. So the Apostle Paul writes this. He says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Everything he talks about is a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice. Do not wait for feelings. Feelings come and feelings go. Now, these words weren't written specifically to married couples. They were written in the context of just relationships. But if they were written to married couples, here's how we would summarize them. Number one, treat your spouse better than you treat anyone else. Right? You laugh at the jokes of people that you know the jokes aren't funny. Right? If I meet someone for the first time, if I meet someone and just a friend comes over, I'm going to tell you in the conversation, I'm not looking at my phone every 2 minutes. It's easy to do with my wife, though. Treat your spouse better than you treat anyone else. Number two, forgive your spouse quicker than you forgive anyone else. And this is the person you live with. It may take days, and depending on the hurt, it may take months. It may take years. But work on forgiving, meaning I will not retaliate evil for evil, and I'm going to continue to try to build a relationship with you. And then number three, adapt to your spouse far more than you adapt to anyone else. I'm going to show interest in the things that you're interested in, even though I'm not really interested in them, because I realize that this relationship isn't just about me. Key verse for the series, be devoted to each other in love, honor one another above yourselves. Next week, we'll continue this series, and we're going to continue it in the context of parenting. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, just help us. Wherever we're at in our relationships, help us to be individuals who care about the foundation, who work on the foundation so that we can go the distance. And wherever there's cracks in that foundation right now, wherever things feel like they're falling apart, give us wisdom to know what to do and courage to do it. In Jesus' name, amen.